Hey, this is Matt once again. Welcome back to another review. There's another paid request, this time for Brian. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos, whether it be a topic, reaction, a commentary, a review, randomness, whatever it may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. Now, this is for the 2002 remake of The Rain. Now, of course, when I say a remake, the original was called Rendu, and this started off a lot of remakes at the time of this type, where this film was fairly successful, and then its American versions of The Eye, what Jessica Alba was in it. You had Dark Water with, I think, Jennifer Connelly. You had a lot of those type of remakes of Japanese horror films, usually dealing with a ghost, either dealing with a phone or camera or some type of device, or I think there's just like a gluttony of those type of films coming out because of the success of this. Wanted to recapture the success of this, and probably the only one that came close was The Grudge with Sarah Michelle Gellar. Now, I know this had a sequel, which the sequel wasn't that good. I mean, the one good thing I would say about the sequel is it does have a definitive ending, which is kind of rare for this kind of movie. But on the flip side, that's also the movie that has a lot of CGI deer. And I'm talking about The Ring 2. I mean, really bad looking, some of the worst CGI I've seen, with that CGI deer attack on Naomi Watts and her son. And you didn't have the same director. Actually, The Ring 2 is directed by the guy who directed the original Rendu. This is directed by Gore Verbinski. Now, Gore Verbinski, if that name rings a bell, he would go on to direct Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one, and some of the sequels. He would direct The Lone Ranger with Johnny Depp. He would go make A Cure for Wellness. I do think a lot of his films suffer with pacing. I like A Cure for Wellness. It's too long, though. That is an issue. The Lone Ranger I'm not a fan of. One of the issues is it's way too long. And it's like, there's a lot of touches of this film that could be cut out. This one, I would say, of the films he's made, is one of the more decently paced. It's under 2 hours. And a lot of those Japanese ghost story films, I'm not really a fan of. I'm not a fan of The Grudge. I'm not a fan of Dark Water. I'm not a fan of The Eye. Just not really a fan of them. But this one, I think number one, I like the cast. I liked Naomi Watts. She would later be in Peter Jackson's Teen Con. She was in this film I enjoyed called The Shaft, also known as Down, which was a killer elevator movie. I know. But I thought that was a fun B movie. I mean, it ends with Aerosmith's loving an elevator. It ends with a guy blowing up the heart of the evil elevator with a fucking bazooka. It was fun for a B movie. I like the guy who plays her past boyfriend. The kid who plays her son did a good job. He was not annoying. He was like a little adult. He even calm conversations with his mom, and again, seemed like just a mini adult, which was refreshing because sometimes a lot of kids can be really irritating. I like the look of the film. Gore Verbinski definitely has an eye for the camera. As much as I don't like The Lone Ranger, the action scene where it's a train and another train and they're going back and forth, that scene is well directed. If that scene was the movie would be a lot more positive. And there's a lot of good, I mean, from the images on the tape itself to seeing those images replicated when the 7 days are occurring, certain camera angles, camera movements, using reflections on TV screens, you pulling out to review more what's going on. There's definitely an eye for the visuals from Gore Verbinski. And also the concept is interesting. A cursed videotape. And with the cursed videotape, you get a phone call after watching it, and a voice says 7 days. And 7 days from now, at the exact time, you will die. Because Naomi Watts' niece dies. Her mom just completely confused, doesn't know what happened, is asking Naomi Watts for help because she's a reporter. So she looks into it, and it leads her to this cabin where she finds a VHS tape, watches it, a lot of very weird, creepy images. Random but creepy, and then as the story unfolds, you realize what these images meant. Like there's an image of a fly, there's images of horses, there's an image of a well, a ladder, all that jazz. I remember when I first saw this, I thought it was intriguing how, again, the images felt random, but then as the story went on, you realized for the most part why these images were there, and each image had a bit of a purpose. And I always liked the mystery. It's a mystery movie where she is slowly solving what has happened in the past. As throughout the 7 days, these images on the tape become real. Well, I thought one of the most effective scenes is that she's at a device looking through it after making a copy, but she's looking through it, and then there's a fly that is usually on the tape, like around here, like around this area. And she's, wait a minute, it's paused, but looks like the fly is still fluttering, and she reaches up and is able to pick up the fly. So it's like it was part of the screen, and now it's on the screen. That was a nice visual touch. And like I said, I thought the guy who plays, what you come to find out was her former boyfriend, and he again, the cast, I don't really have any issues with the cast. Even Brian Cox, who, when she goes to this place and it's the farm doing more investigation, and Brian Cox, he was Hannibal Lecter back in the day in Manhunter. He was in X-Men 2. He was in The Glimmer Man. He's been in a lot of stuff. Even he does a good job. And like I said, it's a movie where you have a good cast, nice visuals, and atmosphere. It takes place in Seattle, so it's definitely a rainy type of setting. I thought that helped with the whole atmosphere of the flick. It felt like there was a budget behind it, so it could be creative with its visuals. And certain images. For example, there's a place where Naomi Watts finds and goes to the barn, and when she looks at the barn, you see the same ladder from the tape, and she walks up. You get pieces more and more as to what had happened with this little girl, and the mother, and the father, Brian Cox, and all sorts of stuff. And again, the whole concept of the tape. I mean, this was when VHS was on its way out to dying. I mean, if it was a couple years later, it would be like a DVD. About the analog VHS tape, they're still a bit more enticing. Maybe because at the time we had known about it for so long, and the idea of this random videotape, and there'd be urban legends of people, oh, I found this tape and it's a snuff film, or I found this tape, and a tape to be so on the outside, so blank, where there's no pictures on it, there's no cover on it, and when you look at that, it could be anything at all. And Naomi Watts gives a good emotional performance, worrying about her son, because her son watches the tape without her knowing it. Then she finds out too late, and her frenzy in trying to get this solved, not only to save her, but to save her son. It's one of those films that I know a lot of people talk about, a lot of people mention, and I kind of wondered, like, what more can I bring to the table that hasn't been said? Like, I don't really have a lot of issues. I mean, the ending, I don't want to say typical, but it's, like a lot of these endings, it's not, it leaves room for more. But I do think it was effective in what it was trying to do. The coming out of the TV, and I mean, in retrospect, I think it could have gone a bit harder into an R rating. I think that would have been fine. Obviously, I forget what I mean, I think this is PG-13. I don't see why it would be rated R. I think it could go a bit harder on the rating. I do think the ending leaves a bit of a spooky demeanor to it. Spoiler alert. Spoilers. Our two adults find this well. She goes down it. I did a nice location. Looks gritty, looks dungy. Just tungy, grungy, all the ungies in the world. And you think it's going to be like The Changeling or something like that. You release the spirit, or you do what you're told, and you found the body, and the body could be peaceful. And then the kid's like, you weren't supposed to help her. Why did you help her? You weren't supposed to help her. Now, I don't know how that changed things, like, helped her, because it felt like she just did the same thing anyway. So it kind of made me go, what was the point? I guess really just because she's been found. But I guess kind of the gist is that this is not an innocent person that was need to be found to let her soul be at peace. It was evil. It was evil all along. And, well, once you think there's a little girl being nice and kind, but in a padded cell saying some things, it's really an evil little bitch. An evil little bitch. And she needed to get fucked with. And then the whole idea at the end where the person we show it to, sorry, I was wondering what the hell that noise is. I've been drinking 7-Up more often. Look at this fucking noise. If you can't hear, like, snap, crackle, pop. So I put a bunch of fucking pop rocks in my mouth and go. Weird. Sorry about that. I had a moment. But the idea of, the kids asking, well, wait a minute, the person we show it to, because the reason she survived was not because she found the spirit of the body, it was because she made a copy. And then the little boy asks, well, what happens to the person that we show this to? And she doesn't say anything because it's that conundrum. What would you do to save your kid? I'm like, well, find a serial killer, find a rapist, and show it to them. That's what I would do. It's like, well, there's some rapists and murderers. Be like, hey, I need to show this rapist this tape. Here you go. Have fun. I mean, she's a reporter. She might find a way to do it. But I think that's why the ending I could deal with is because it's not just, oh shit, it's spoilers. That's like, oh shit, everyone dies, and then boom, it ends, and there's nothing else. It's because, yes, it's sad that the guy died. But then, the movie doesn't just stop there. Sudden, I don't want to say random, but like, okay, I guess that's it. No, it does that, but then there's still I don't even want to say an epilogue, but there's still, okay, calm down a little bit. And then this makes it a bit even spookier, where she does save her son, and then at the end the son's asking that question, and she has no answer. She just looks back, and that thing about how this Kurtz wants to be a disease that wants to spread. And even watch it now, and knowing in the back of my head that it does get resolved in The Ring 2. There is an ending to it. Because I don't think that film Rings has a lot much to do with it. Wasn't there a movie overseas like The Ring versus The Grudge? Did they do like a versus movie? I think they did, which I thought was weird. But yeah, The Ring, I think it's a pretty solid film. I said I think Gore Verbinski did a good job. I mean, you have to make a scene where a damn horse goes crazy on a ferry, and how do you make it not laughable? I thought he, for the most part, pulled it off. And there's a part in spoilers where the horse has to go off the boat. It's I could see why visual effects were used in that. You're not going to have a real fucking horse do that. I thought, with the way it was cut, I think he did the best he could and make it as least laughable as possible. And like I said, it was interesting, even though I know where it was going, to show how this reporter figures things out. And it was, like I said, a little intriguing mystery to me, the whole thing with the tape, and find more of the backstory. So, I liked it. I still liked it. I still think it holds up fairly well. Like I said, I don't really have a lot of issues with it. So, and I think Naomi Watts being the lead definitely helps as well. She's fairly solid in it. I think this is definitely a film that helped her get a lot more roles, afterwards. Although I don't know what Naomi Watts, what was the last, I don't remember what the last film she was in. So, but yeah. I'm trying, there's not really any other of those Japanese, like The Eye I thought sucked. Even the other regular Japanese horror films, I wasn't really a fan of Renju. I've seen Renju. I prefer the remake because the remake is much more polished because of the bigger budget and Gore Verbinski's more visually dynamic direction. The original, there's this one called Infection that's in a hospital. I didn't really care for that one. Like I said, I didn't care for The Eye or the remake. I didn't care for... God, there was another one. I forgot what the hell it was called. I think there's one called Shutter, and there's one called... There's a lot of those damn movies. I think Shutter was a camera. Wasn't there something... God, that's going to bother me. Pulse. Yeah, there's one called Pulse. There's like sequels to it. I'm like, I prefer the Pulse of the 80s with Joey Lawrence. But the other Pulse I wasn't really big on. But that's just me. But with that said, thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.